might have bumped into them,
It was really good money.
I have to carry up this burden.
interacted with them,
They might be uncomfortable.
I feel a lot like loneliness.
or even worked with them.
I honestly don't think that we have it easy.
The rising of costs is just something that we couldn't expect.
But do we really see them? What are they hiding? This is Beyond Plain Sight.
Right now, a simple cai png would already cost close to $4. I'll get like 2 veggie, 1 meat.
My grocery bill has increased by 20%.
My rent is going to increase by about 15%, which translates to around $300.
So date nights, we usually try to stay at home. Of course, I can't do that all the time, right? Later I got no more girlfriend. So whenever I take my girlfriend out for meals, right, I will try to search for deals, like 1 for 1 or even like 20 to 30% discounts.
Okay, I got a car. Let's go.
It's a Friday.
Hello.
Hello.
Dinah, Sherry, Dinah.
And I'm hanging out with a different crowd, Millennials.
How often do you go out to socialize?
Weekly or every other week, we will check out like what new restaurants and bars. We spend about 100-ish per pax for dinner and drinks when we go out, yeah. And to be honest, that amount is quite okay for me because it includes drinks.
We came by private hire car just now, and you told me in the car that that's actually your preferred mode of transport. How much do you spend a month?
I actually take Grab like 99% of the time when I have to leave my house. It used to be like closer to $700-800 a month. I'm trying to cut down. I just got used to the convenience. Like I cannot imagine having to wake up 2.5 hours earlier now anymore.
So it's become part of your lifestyle?
Yes, yes.
What about savings? Do you put money aside?
Yeah, I try to put like the recommended amount, which is about 20% of the income. I feel like I've done pretty well, like ever since I graduated, but recently my dog fell sick, so he basically wiped out like most of my savings.
I spent an entire day with Joey to look at where her money goes. Apart from wining and dining and private hire cars.
So what's next?
I'm going for a Muay Thai class, so I have a personal trainer and it helps me stay consistent with like my fitness.
Throw in her groceries and other daily necessities, Joey spends up to 3,000 Singapore dollars a month. But you see, her monthly pay isn't fixed. Like many her age, Joey has chosen to be a gig worker. Which means while she's her own boss, her pay fluctuates according to the projects she gets. So, what's really beyond the surface? In the US, 6 in 10 young adults are worried they will never meet their financial goals due to the rising costs of living. In the UK, inflation and slow wage growth are forcing some young adults to move back home. So, how are our young adults faring in Singapore? My morning coffee with milk at the hawker centre is up about 10 cents. Groceries for my family of 5 is $53 more a month now. If I choose to eat out, my plate of chicken rice is up 30 cents. Airfares within Asia are projected to increase by 5.4% this year. And a full tank of petrol costs me at least $22 more today. Inflation in Singapore hit 7% in 2022, the highest in almost 14 years. Christopher Gee is a keen observer of Singapore's economy.
Inflation has spiked in the last few years. Why is that so?
Historically, Singapore's inflation rate has ranged around about 2 to 3%. In 2021, when the COVID measures were starting to be lifted, inflation picked up a little bit, and when the economy started to open up completely, of course, inflation has risen even further from there, and we're running around about 5, 6, and we've seen a print of even 7%. The source of that inflation is complex. We've had the war in Ukraine, lots of supply shocks from around the region. Singapore, of course, imports all of its food. Another contributing factor to inflation over the last few years is the amount of government support. So in Singapore, there was the big package in 2020, and that was followed up in 2021, 2022, and in fact, you can think about this very simply as those CDC vouchers that we all got. That all contributes to an increase in the money supply. And with that additional money in people's pockets, they are able to pay for that limited pool of goods and services, and therefore prices rise.
Which groups are worse off when it comes to inflation?
The young generally don't have that much income. And today, a lot of young people have aspirations. We are concerned about their spending needs and the impact of inflation on them. Some people might have to resort to borrowing, unfortunately.
How are young adults grappling with the rising cost of living? The Institute of Policy Studies and Talking Point conducted a survey late last year. We polled over 850 Singaporeans aged between 21 and 29 to find out how they are managing their finances. For the purpose of this show, we'll term them Millennials. Most respondents, 9 in 10, say they are personally affected by rising costs. 3 in 10 say they spend more than they earn.
I worry about money constantly.
Honey is paying off a student loan and a housing loan. Her Housing and Development Board flat will be ready in 3 years. That's also when she plans to get married. Are you on track for payments for your large expenses, yes or no?
No. My HDB is around 300,000, and for my school loan, I'm left with 15,000, and it will just cut down automatically in my credit card.
You are paying off your student loan using your credit card?
Yes.
Okay. And do you pay on time for your credit card?
Yes, but there are some days we miss.
Do you manage to save? If I were to ask you to be honest with yourself, what do you think is the main reason why you haven't been able to save as much as you want to?
There are some things which I feel like I'm distracted by, and peer pressure, like your friends having the same makeup product, the same bag, and you kind of like feel like you missed out. Online doesn't really help because everyone is promoting everything.
They're making it too easy.
Yeah, and it's like tempting for you to shop more and get more foundations in the same shade.
You know what I'm hearing, girls? The online shopping.
Yeah, it's an addiction, I would say. The unnecessary spendings, because there are extra things that I will feel good after spending it.
Give me an example of a very expensive, unnecessary item that made you feel good.
Usually higher-end makeup, around $300.
How often do you do that? To plonk down $300 for makeup, for example?
I will try not to make it every month, but it's becoming to be an every month thing.
I think it's fair to say that Honey spends almost all of her take-home pay. Every month, she also puts at least $900 on her credit card on shopping and eating out. Using credit cards is the norm nowadays, but I wonder if Honey is unwittingly getting herself into more debt.
This game console didn't cost me anything. I own another brand of game console, and I swapped it with a friend so that both of us can try new games without spending extra money. Almost all the furniture in my house is second-hand. This mattress is from Carousel, and my bed frame is from Facebook Marketplace. There's this shelf that I got off Facebook Marketplace as well. I searched for a really long time. So I wanted this as a divider between my bedroom and my living space. and my super huge dining table, some dining chairs, plus my fridge and my washing machine are also moved from Carousel. Since I didn't have the money and I had a lot of time, I just spent a lot of time looking for second-hand items instead.
Joey started renting 2 years ago, and these second-hand deals have saved her an estimated 4,000 Singapore dollars.
I don't really budget religiously, but I pretty much spend about 2.5K to around 3K on necessities, and that includes eating out, buying groceries, and like transport and shopping. And I pay about 1,000 for my rent. I'm sharing it with someone else currently. And I spend about $300 on insurance, and I try to save about 1,000 a month.
In a joint survey by the Institute of Policy Studies and Talking Point, 3 in 10 young adults between the ages of 21 and 29 say they rely on credit as a means to cope. Lines of credit include credit cards. Almost anyone can apply for one. You just need to earn at least 2,500 Singapore dollars a month, and you can borrow up to 2 months of your income. Apart from credit cards, there is another line of credit that's even easier to get.
It's very seamless, convenient, and very easy to use. And I do need an eyebrow pencil, so let me show you. I enter the app and I search out the makeup shop that I want to find my brow definer, and I click checkout, and automatically Otomi splits my payments.
Buy Now Pay Later is just as its name suggests. This payment method allows Honey to pay for a third of her purchase upfront, which is $15 today, another $15 a month later, and the last $15 a month after that. There are no extra or hidden costs.
So I bought this jacket a month ago using Otomi, my makeup products. This perfume, hydrating spray, cleanser, mask. I've been using it Buy Now Pay Later since 2 years ago. There's other options. Instead of just Otomi, I would say Grab Pay Later, but Grab Pay Later is more for my rides. My favorite thing about Buy Now Pay Later is that I don't have to pay in one go during the month itself, so I can really split my costs. Whereas credit card payments is a monthly payment, and if you miss that payment, it will incur charges.
The use of Buy Now Pay Later, or BNPL services, has been on the rise. In 2020, there were 114 million Singapore dollars worth of transactions recorded. In 2021, that went up to a whopping 440 million Singapore dollars. That's an almost 4 times increase in just 1 year. As BNPL services become more widespread, I have to wonder if they are too good to be true. One expert feels that young adults are not as financially literate as they should be. Would you say that younger Singaporeans are more in debt today compared to previous generations?
They definitely are more at risk of getting into more debt compared to the previous generations. Part of the reason is wide accessibility of different instruments that they can get into debt with. Credit cards have been fairly utilized. Buy Now Pay Later is also coming of age. So the issue is that when we have a scheme like Buy Now Pay Later, loan has 2 parts. One is the principal and the other one is the interest. So Buy Now Pay Later does nothing to the principal. The challenge is that there are other hidden costs that many people might not be aware of. Suppose you might not be able to make the payment for an unfortunate incident like losing your job or some other medical expenses that might come in. That might actually have an impact on the penalties that you have to pay in. that penalties act as sort of a pseudo-interest in some sense. So even though you think it's interest-free over a period of time, that might be one of the things you have to worry about. So we did a survey back in 2021. We found out that many of the young adults from 18 to 30-year-olds actually have unsustainable levels of debt. That's more than a monthly income, so between 1 and 6 month income in debt levels. To about 1 in 3 had that levels of debt. Now, if you look at it from whether they could pay it off under the current circumstances, it might be a little challenging.
How worried should we be?
Having levels of debt which is high early on in their life might get them into a habit of taking more debt.
As buy now, pay later services become more widespread, are they changing how an entire generation spends? I ask one of the biggest players in the market some tough questions. Every time BNPL is mentioned, people say, oh, it's a bad thing. Young adults are at risk of getting into more debt today compared to previous generations due to easily accessible lines of credit. An emerging popular service? Buy now, pay later. Assistant Professor Stephanie Lim believes that the marketing of buy now, pay later services actively targets young adults.
On its face, BNPL is kind of a win-win. It can help retailers sell more volume, and it can give consumers access to products that they weren't able to afford before.
As BNPL services get more popular, how do you think it will impact the spending habits of young people?
A lot of the messaging in the advertisements are specifically geared towards younger consumers and trying to change a little bit the mindset of the consumer so that they feel that they can engage in self-indulgent spending. If you take a look at this website, they say things like, we know what you're thinking, you feel like you've hustled hard enough for a treat. This is textbook licensing, which is basically trying to tell you, it's okay, you deserve to spend a lot of money because you've done this virtuous behavior. One way they position themselves is by equating themselves with responsible spending. So saying that if you use buy now, pay later, you're spending responsibly, or you're budgeting.
In a joint survey by the Institute of Policy Studies and Talking Point, we found that for those who use buy now, pay later or BNPL services, 7 in 10 say they spend more each month now, and 6 in 10 are unable to pay their monthly installments in full. I'm bringing concerns about BNPL services to Atomy. It's one of the larger players in Singapore's buy now, pay later scene. Its target market? Millennials and Gen Zs.
The majority of our base is between 21 to 29. That accounts for more than a quarter of our users.
We've spoken to a few experts, and every time BNPL is mentioned, people say, oh, it's a bad thing. Do you think your industry deserves this reputation?
I don't believe we deserve that reputation, but then again, I am part of the industry, right? We are working with the various other organizations that offer this by launching this code of conduct, by being a regulated organization. That helps us hopefully to build consumer confidence in us.
Is your service encouraging people to spend and spend?
As an organization, whenever an individual is not able to pay us back the remaining 2/3 of the transaction, there's no way that we would make money as a company. So it's in our own best interest to ensure that a user is able to pay us back. We have to be quite controlled in terms of who we are giving our credit out to. Atomy has been very successful at that, and we have a default rate, this is meaning individuals who are unable to pay us back, that is actually very much below the industry average. The percentage of the users who have defaulted has actually decreased over time.
I'm just wondering, what is the impact of a service like this on my credit history?
There is no current impact, but I think that younger users should be aware that we don't want to breed that habit of overextending just because there's no impact to their credit history at this point in time.
You've said that you don't want young people to overextend themselves, but that really conflicts with the messages on your website that says indulge today, live in the moment. How do you reconcile that?
I don't necessarily think there's a conflict. The reason being is that you can enjoy and appreciate what you want now and be well within your means to do it. I don't think it's necessarily a conflicting message.
A code of conduct for BNPL providers kicked in late last year. It's not mandatory, although providers will have to abide by it to get accredited. Under the code, all fees, including late fees, are capped. Users cannot owe the BNPL company more than $2,000 at any one time unless they pass an additional credit assessment. And if they miss a payment, well, their account with that provider will be suspended. But there's nothing to stop them from using multiple providers at the moment, and it's still unclear how this could affect their credit history in the long run.
Do you see your current lifestyle as sustainable?
Honestly, no.
I do have plans of moving overseas. I'll be able to be comfortable there for a lot less.
During my parents' time, their house costs around 150,000, but house with my fiance is already doubled, 300,000.
What about the people who say, why not just cut back on your spending?
But that's just not my priority right now. It's just different ways people live. So yeah, I'll take cabs, but I can eat hawker food like most days.
As a mother, I am naturally concerned about what the lives of my 3 children will look like after they enter the workforce and start making their own money. As things get more expensive and credit lines more attainable, this generation of youths is possibly at greater risk of running into debt compared to previous generations. I guess all I can do now is to continue to educate my 3 children about the risks of spending beyond their means.